First day of the new year and mass nationwide protests are continuing to sweep the country for the fifth day. Add to that the threat of renewed Israeli strikes over the regime's attempts to rearm and rebuild its terror proxies. All the details in the following report.
It's the new year, and protests in the Islamic Republic of Iran are showing no signs of dissipating. The protests, which began over high inflation and a slump in the value of the local rial currency among shopkeepers in Tehran on Sunday, December 28th, by Tuesday had spread to several universities and then to the streets nationwide, with Iranians expressing dissatisfaction with the regime. On the fourth day of protests, a member of the Islamic Republic's security forces was reportedly killed, according to the Fars news agency. The incident reportedly happened in the city of Kaudash. Video circulating on social media also showed protesters trying to access a government building in Iran's southern Fars province, throwing rocks and trying to force open the gates. Social media has also been filled with videos of protesters calling for the downfall of the regime and clashing with security forces. The protests are the largest in Iran since 2022, when Iranians took to the streets over the death of 22-year-old Masha Amini, who died in police custody after being arrested for not wearing her hijab properly. Those protests were violently squashed with forceful security measures, extensive arrests, and executions. This time, the government has reportedly said it would create a dialogue mechanism with the leaders of the demonstrations, though it did not elaborate on how this mechanism would work. And not just threats from within, but according to an Axios report, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu discussed the possibility of attacking Iran again in 2026 during his meeting with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Netanyahu has sounded the alarm over Iranian attempts to rearm and rebuild their ballistic missile program since the 12-day war in June.
And joining us now with more on the latest in Iran is Ben Sabti, an expert on Iran at the INSS. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me here. I also want to congratulate all of us and also the Iranian people for a better year. A year that we can get rid of maybe this horrible regime and live peacefully in the Middle East.
Let's certainly hope so. And you know, what started as protests over the economy seems to have spiraled into something much more. So can you maybe give us a breakdown of what's driving the current protests in Iran and how significant are they compared to past unrest?
Yes, so we are already in the fifth day of the protests, and it's kind of unusual because they are surviving the depression and they are still there. The people from many parts of Iran, many cities and many smaller cities, they are demonstrating against the regime. First, we have the Bazaris, those people who are connected to the regime, and they got some foreign currency that was subsidized for them to bring some merchandise from abroad into Iran and sell it to the people. But even they cannot do that anymore because the prices are so high that even them who are connected to the regime cannot afford these prices. Of course, the ordinary people cannot afford that also. And also the students and all the depression against them, the freedom is going away and kind of vanishing. All the hijab issue is coming back to the women. So there are a lot of reasons how we see suddenly all these people coming out to many places, to many streets of Iran and protesting against the regime. The thing is, and the other thing is that the depression forces are not so active. They are not depressing them as they used to do before. We see a lot of negotiations between a policeman or a IRGC man and a protester. And when the protester says to him, you know that your salary is also so low, so how do you want to beat me? And the guy says to him, yes, you are so right. I'm also suffering from this situation. So we are in a very different kind of protest here, not like the other years.
So different protests. I mean, do they now pose a real threat to the Iranian leadership, or does the regime still maintain firm control, as we saw, let's say, in the 2022 protests?
Yes, it's very early to predict this kind of situation to where it can go. I kind of hope and also can predict that these protests can go on for a few more days, even about 5 or 10 days. It can bring the regime to make some mistakes, to depress them harder, or make other mistakes like threatening other countries in the region, even Israel. It was spoken even in the other places and estimations of other Israeli news. So we can see that as long as the people are outside, the regime is weaker in its status. And also we have a very strange situation with the president. He admits all the mistakes of the regime, how they were treating so bad the people and brought the situation to that place. This is an unordinary situation that someone admits the mistakes of the regime, and this also gives the protesters the hope that they can go on with the protests. So if the regime makes more and more mistakes, it can bring us to the other situation. But it's very early to see a kind of a collapse or joining bigger parts of the depression forces to the people. This is a very early situation that we have here.
So we'll, of course, continue to follow very closely what's happening inside of Iran. And, of course, we can't forget that there's also the threat of Israeli strikes looming. Ben Sabti, thank you so much for your analysis today. And we'll continue to follow here on ILTV.
Thank you.
And Israeli forces have launched a major operation in Judea and Samaria, targeting so-called refugee camps, long used as bases for Palestinian terror groups. The action comes amid U.S. pressure to scale back operations in the territories. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
In Nur Shams near Nablus, bulldozers and cranes demolished about 25 buildings housing some 100 families. The IDF says the move is part of efforts to root out armed groups and improve military access in northern Samaria, following similar operations in Jenin and Tulkarm. The army says the steps are necessary to protect Israeli civilians and maintain security. Defense Minister Israel Katz warned of possible October 7-style attacks in the area and called to expand operations. Katz said the IDF presence has reduced terror activity by about 80%. The defense minister also ordered plans to move IDF bases to northern Samaria, calling it an historic security correction. He added, as in Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria, IDF troops must remain on the ground in Judea and Samaria to act as a buffer between civilians and terror groups. Katz's comments came even as President Trump is reportedly pressing Israel to scale back military activity in the territories, strengthen the Palestinian Authority, freeze settlement expansion, and take stronger action against Jewish extremist violence against Palestinians.
And ILTV is partnering with Regavim to spotlight one of the most critical issues facing Israel today: the protection of our national land and resources. Regavim works on the ground in the courts and in the Knesset to expose illegal land seizures, defend the rule of law, and safeguard Israel's heartland, especially in Judea and Samaria. So if you want real data and a deeper understanding of what's happening beyond the headlines, you can scan the QR code on your screen or visit regavim.org and sign up for their newsletter. Learn how you can play a role in safeguarding the land of Israel. And moving on, the IDF Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, today toured southern Gaza, meeting commanders and troops on the front lines, vowing to fully disarm Hamas in 2026. Zamir praised offensive operations against Hamas and stressed constant alertness and readiness to protect Israeli civilians. He said the IDF achieved unprecedented successes in 2025, dealing Hamas a severe blow, removing the October 7th level threat, and returning all living hostages. Looking to 2026, Zamil vowed to fully disarm Hamas, saying Israel will not allow the terror group to rebuild and will continue acting against any threat. In northern Gaza, amid the fragile ceasefire, troops already found a loaded rocket launcher near Beit Hanun, which was destroyed. Meanwhile, the IDF is preparing for a possible reopening of the Rafah crossing. The Trump administration expects Israel to allow both entry and exit of Gazans within days after President Donald Trump raised the issue in meetings with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The crossing was meant to reopen under the October ceasefire, but Israel has limited it until the body of the final hostage, Ran Gvili, is returned. Egypt has kept Rafah closed, accusing Israel of trying to reduce Gaza's population. Despite pushback from far-right ministers, Netanyahu has brought the issue to his cabinet. Channel 12 says Israel is now planning a full reopening after Netanyahu returns from the United States, so it is not seen as blocking Trump's Gaza plan. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met in Florida with leaders of the evangelical community hosted by Dr. Mike Evans, founder of the Friends of Zion Heritage Center in Jerusalem, and a longtime friend of both the Prime Minister and President Trump. During the meeting, Netanyahu praised Christian Zionist support, calling it a shared struggle for Judeo-Christian values, and said the Jewish state could not have been reestablished without their backing in the United States. He said Israel has fought a 7-front war and now faces an 8th, a battle for the hearts and minds in the West, warning this is a common fight for Judeo-Christian civilization and that terrorism must be confronted, not excused.
We fought, as you know, a 7-front war, and we've come out in many ways victorious. But there's an 8th front, and that's the front for the hearts and minds of people, especially young people in the West, and for me, especially in the United States, and for me, especially on the conservative wing of the United States. And I think it's not just Israel's battle. I think it's our common Judeo-Christian civilizational battle. And I think we have to engage in that battle as forcefully, with as much resolution as we engage the other 7 fronts. I think it affects not only Israel, it affects America, it affects our alliance, it affects the future of Western civilization.
In turn, Dr. Evans told the Prime Minister that the evangelical community has also not been immune to this new front, but remains unwavering in its support of Israel. Evans just last month brought 1,000 U.S. pastors to Israel to be commissioned as Friends of Zion ambassadors and fight this ideological war on the front lines. He said he plans to bring an additional 3,000 pastors in the coming year. And meanwhile, last night, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife Sarah joined U.S. President Trump at his New Year's Eve party at the Mar-a-Lago resort. They will fly home this evening and are due to arrive back in Israel tomorrow afternoon. And joining us now with more on the latest in Israel and the region for the year ahead is Einat Will, founder of the Oz Party. Einat, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So it's the first day of 2026, and there are still so many open fronts looming. You know, in the last few months of 2025, Israel was sort of in limbo, waiting for Hamas, for Hezbollah to implement their side of the ceasefire, but instead, of course, watching them rearm and unable to really go in and finish the job. So looking ahead to 2026, is Israel entering a period of greater strategic clarity or deeper uncertainty?
It's not clear, mostly from the Israeli perspective. It's very clear what the United States wants. America wants, and that is what it achieved, is for Gaza to be less in the news in order that the United States can move forward with its vision for the Middle East, for alliances over AI, to expand the Abraham Accords, as the kind of, by now, the Abraham Accords, certainly with Kazakhstan and Somaliland, are becoming more of an alliance that allows the United States to kind of bring to its side the Arab and Muslim Middle East, especially as a kind of balance to China and a lot of things that have to do with AI, rare earth, shipping, and so forth. So these are the American interests. The thing about Israel is that for America to have Gaza, for example, not in the news, is fine for the United States. But this is at Israel's doorstep, and to ignore the fact that Hamas is rearming, to ignore the fact that Egypt is putting massive pressure to essentially continue as if nothing has happened, the pressure that the fact that Lebanon is still, despite all the gifts that Israel has given it in kind of reducing the power of Hezbollah, of Iran, Lebanon is still not able to assert its sovereignty. Syria remains teetering between the notion of a united Syria and breakup for kind of ethnic enclaves and groups. So in each of these areas, things remain highly uncertain. The problem is that especially when it comes to Gaza, the West Bank, the Palestinian Authority, and the 20-point plan, the Trump peace plan, is that Israel is not making it clear that actually the condition of success, in order for the peace plan to be successful, this time all the conditions that in the past led to failure have to be taken care of.
I want to ask, because you've argued extensively that the core obstacle to peace is the sort of the acceptance of Jewish sovereignty. Does anything in 2026 suggest that this reality is changing? I mean, what do you realistically expect Gaza and Israel's relationship with the Palestinians to look like in the coming year?
So as far as I'm concerned, the word realistically is one that is typically used in order to then say, okay, this is not going to happen, and therefore we need to accept a terrible reality. But as a true Zionist, I believe in our ability to shape the future. And I believe that this is the moment, certainly after what they did on October 7th, to make it clear that the ideology, not the people, the ideology of Palestinianism has to die. And that means the things that fuel it, UNRWA, perpetual refugeehood, return, have to go. You just reported about the opening of the Rafah crossing because Egypt has put massive pressure to allow Gazans, the few who managed to escape to Egypt, to go back to Gaza. Israel should say, okay, the condition of that is if people go back to Gaza, then that's it. They're not Palestine refugees. Gaza is their final destination. They have to hand over their UNRWA refugee card at the Rafah crossing. On the other side, get a Gaza resident card. So these are the kind of things that Israel needs to have a vision and to push forward. Otherwise, you're right. We have forces on the other side that are trying to just go back to turning October 7th and its aftermath to be just another what we call Sevev round, where the Palestinians and their enablers continue to prepare the next war of annihilation against Israel.
And how do you see Western governments, especially the United States and Europe, shaping Israel's options in this coming year? You mentioned how the United States would like to see things. Do you expect constraint or strategic backing?
Well, there's definitely backing for the idea, and this we see strongly in the previous and the current Trump administration, that Arab countries have to come to terms with Israel as the sovereign state of the Jewish people, and that is the only smart strategic positioning. All previous administrations that thought they would get to peace by strong arming Israel have failed. And it's not a coincidence that in the previous Trump administration, when he pretty much made it clear to the Arabs that Israel's here to stay, he made headway with the Abraham Accords. So the same here. I think this is a good direction. We saw it in the Mar-a-Lago press conference. But I do hope that countries like Qatar and Turkey this time do not wield too much influence that would kind of undermine what is the smart strategic notion of backing Israel and sending the message to Arab countries, just come to terms with the fact that Israel's a Jewish state, it's here to stay, and your support for Palestinianism has to end.
Einat Wilf, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And as Israel begins 2026, many are reflecting on a year shaped by war and uncertainty. On the first day of the new year, ILTV's India Naftali spoke with Israelis about what they're hoping for in the months ahead. India?
Yes, it is January 1st, 2026, and after a year marked by war with Hamas, a direct confrontation with Iran, and months of national strain, I spoke with Israelis about what they're carrying into this new year and what they hope for 2026.
To live in peace and them to take our taxes down, because like it's insane because of all the wars. And I don't know, just live a good life with my husband and bring kids, and just so they don't hear the wars and live in the war area that I born in.
And I'm hoping that Israel will stay, everybody here in Israel will stay healthy and happy, and people can get on with each other, and we can have peace, and we can get on doing what we want to do like normal countries.
Wow, to tell you the truth, 2025 was the worstest years of my life, I think. And things now it's getting better. We have a lot of good hope for the new year.
These hopes come after a year that pushed many Israelis to make difficult decisions. According to Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics, more than 69,000 Israelis left the country in 2025 under the shadow of the wars with Gaza and Iran, marking the second straight year of negative migration. Despite that, Israel's population continued to grow. By the end of 2025, the country reached a record 10.1 million residents, about 112,000 more than the year before. The numbers reflect a country at a crossroads, with some choosing to leave, while others stay, rebuild, and look ahead. While for most in Israel, the new year begins on the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah, Israelis do have some well wishes for our viewers.
Happy New Year's, and I hope 2026 is gonna be very different than since 2023 till 2025, because it's felt like 3 long years and like a long period of time. And so I hope 2026 is gonna be different. Peace and love.
I wish everybody a happy new year.
I wish to all of our friends, have a good life, have a good spirit.
As Israel steps into 2026, the challenges are still here. For many Israelis, this new year isn't about celebration. It's about hope, healing, and also believing that the future can be better than the past. Back to you.
Thank you, India.
Your dream apartment in the holiest city in the world is just a click away. Am Yisrael Chai, the lifeline for so many chesed operations in Israel, is holding their annual Dream Raffle, where one ticket only can buy you a luxurious apartment in the heart of Jerusalem. Don't win the apartment? No problem! All raffle proceeds from all tickets go directly to one of the incredible organizations that Am Yisrael Chai supports. And for the first time ever, the apartment is fully furnished. Don't miss this incredible opportunity to actively donate to Israel's functionality and, on the way, potentially score big and win the apartment of a lifetime. Scan the QR code now to join.
And now let's take a look. Will 2026 see the fall of the Islamic Republic regime in Iran? It's the first day of the new year, and mass nationwide protests are continuing to sweep the country for the 5th day. Add to that the threat of renewed Israeli strikes over the regime's attempts to rearm and rebuild its terror proxies. All the details in the following report.
It's the new year, and protests in the Islamic Republic of Iran are showing no signs of dissipating. The protests, which began over high inflation and a slump in the value of the local rial currency among shopkeepers in Tehran on Sunday, December 28th, by Tuesday had spread to several universities and then to the streets nationwide, with Iranians expressing dissatisfaction with the regime. On the 4th day of protests, a member of the Islamic Republic's security forces was reportedly killed, according to the Fars news agency. The incident reportedly happened in the city of Kaudash. Video circulating on social media also showed protesters trying to access a government building in Iran's southern Fars province, throwing rocks and trying to force open the gates. Social media has also been filled with videos of protesters calling for the downfall of the regime and clashing with security forces. The protests are the largest in Iran since 2022, when Iranians took to the streets over the death of 22-year-old Masha Amini, who died in police custody after being arrested for not wearing her hijab properly. Those protests were violently squashed with forceful security measures, extensive arrests, and executions. This time, the government has reportedly said it would create a dialogue mechanism with the leaders of the demonstrations, though it did not elaborate on how this mechanism would work. And not just threats from within, but according to an Axios report, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu discussed the possibility of attacking Iran again in 2026 during his meeting with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Netanyahu has sounded the alarm over Iranian attempts to rearm and rebuild their ballistic missile program since the 12-day war in June.
And joining us now with more on the latest in Iran is Ben Sabti, an expert on Iran at the INSS. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me here. I also want to congratulate all of us and also the Iranian people for a better year